Thanks for tuning in to Cop with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen. We're with Comic Joe James. Joe James, how the hell are you?
Hey, Brian, I am fine. How the hell are you?
I'm doing effing great. Thank you, Joe James. And we follow Joe James everywhere. It's Joe James 1065 across Twitter and Instagram, but also on the URL, the WW, as Letterman would say, it's joejames.net. And there can we learn about Literate Ape, where don't you write satire for them?
I do. I write a weekly satirical column called The Minutes of Our Last Meeting for an online literary magazine called Literate Ape.
Literate Ape. And so is that basically current? I know you're a big current events guy. So is that normally current events focused like this week? Speaker McCarthy, is that his name?
Yeah, actually, that's what I wrote about on Wednesday.
Yeah, just retweet. I just retweeted you. And so that comes out every Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was good timing, huh?
Well, it's always a mixed bag, right? It's like, oh man, it's a great timing. I'm on top of this and I got something for it. And it's also like, wow, this is a horrible thing going on in the world.
Yes. Yeah. And also you're kind of behind, you did it for Wednesday. You were nice and topical, but I mean, by the time next Wednesday rolls around, I don't know, people scooped you by then because stuff has happened since.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I usually wait until sometimes I'll start writing it on Tuesday, but I usually wait till Wednesday morning to write it, and then it goes out Wednesday afternoon.
Oh my Lord. That's how topical his column is.
Yeah, it's hot off the presses.
But I mean, even if, because, you're a comedian, you have a point of view and you actually teach this stuff pretty extensively, I think, even if people scoop you, obviously Speaker McCarthy happened and people reported on it first, you're always going to have the interesting take on it, right?
Well, typically, I mean, it depends on what you consider to be competition, because it's, there's so many satirical news outlets online, and there's also, Saturday Night Live, Daily Show, etc. I try not to think about that.
It would drive you nuts because you literally by then you'd be about the 100th joke.
Right.
I've seen so many jokes about this thing, and a lot of them are just super funny. I follow just the comedians who've been on my podcast, and I've retweeted so many because they managed to find a new angle. Like, do you have faith that by next Wednesday morning you'll have that 100th joke, or are you already eyeing other stories that you might write about?
Well, that's a great question. Usually, I start thinking about it on Tuesday, and if I can, I might hook onto an idea and start writing it on Tuesday. If I don't have anything, my typical routine on Wednesday morning is to get up early. I'm usually up around 6, and then I'll go through the news. I'll grab my laptop, go to a nearby coffee shop. I'm in Chicago. There's 4 in walking distance from where I live. And then
nice. What neighborhood?
I'm in Bridgeport, which is near White Sox Stadium.
Oh, 3 or 4 good ones?
Coffee shop?
Wow.
Yeah. Well, 3 of them are independent, and the 4th one's a Starbucks.
Okay, you need some of both.
Well,
even the good independent drinks start tasting the same, in my opinion. Like I always have cafe mochas at some of ththese really indie places, and they all taste great in the same exact way. And then Starbucks has a totally different way of doing it because it's probably crap, but you're going to get the same Starbucks experience, but you need both, I think.
Totally different, but around the holidays, sometimes Starbucks is the only one that's open. So
yes, and during a pandemic, I mean, those motherfuckers closed down. Yeah. And so, like, I eat all my food there. So, dude, like I was always saying, like, what's that? Walking Dead, like apocalypse movies are not accurate because during a pandemic, if you don't have a fat podcaster, like, motherfucker, piece of shit, this Starbucks fucking closed. You're like, I mean, I was just fucking dropping F-bombs in the middle of the street because these people were closed. I was like, how dare you? You're my kitchen. You're my restaurant.
Yeah. You're my pantry. Yeah.
So, I mean, like, what's your opinion on things like, what's the one that just got unbanned from Twitter? Is it Babylon Bee or something?
Oh, I don't. Oh,
I think it's more of a right wing.
I don't know a lot about it.
Yeah, so I think it's a right wing thing, and I think it's pretty huge. And I saw this the other day, and it was bizarre. And I think it was it is Babylon Bee, and it says AOC, the Ocasio-Cortez person, lays wreath at her grave on January 6th. And I think so it was just so right wing that it was so in the weeds, like so inside that I kind of get it where maybe she played the victim so hard that she's celebrating her death even though she's alive. Like she literally, like, they had a picture of her laying a wreath at her own grave. Like, do you get that? And is there a danger in being so right wing or left wing of a comedy periodical that people on the other side might not even get it?
Well, I mean, that's certainly true. I feel there's definitely a history of conservatives picking up Onion articles and thinking they're real. You know, like years ago, there was one about I forget what exact the details of it, but about somewhere somebody opened an abortion mall, and some conservative like just started railing about this is how horrible things are becoming.
Wow.
Um, and I think with the conservative side, it's really they have tried very hard to do comedy. Uh,
They're still trying.
well, the tricky thing is, like, if you have a more open-minded sensibility, you're punching up. That's the whole point of satire, is that you're speaking truth to power.
Yeah.
So you're going after politicians, you're going after presidents, you're going after corporations. Um, a lot of things that what happens with conservatives is like they're trying to get rid of Social Security and safety nets, so they're
Yeah.
going after hungry children, and not really a good target for comedy.
Yeah. And like the Onion can pick targets and punch up on the left and right just as easily, and they tend to.
Oh,
But
and I
I
think
think like they're just better at it. And so like,
yeah,
why would you be trying to do something that we can already do? Because we have a relatively open mind when it comes to comedy, I would think.
it's certainly possible, and you know I think Stephen Colbert does a good job at that too. While mostly being on the left side, he will occasionally have jokes that go the other way, and that's totally fine. It's totally doable, but you just have to know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that comes, you know what you're doing because you teach this stuff. So give me the one sentence version, the one sentence kind of resume of your teaching experience. But I know you teach both improv and sketch. And so the
Yeah.
question I kind of want to ask is, in that last little bit, we talked about, I don't even, you have to kind of have something that people on the left and right get enough to be funny to everybody. And so when you're writing and when you're teaching writing and when you're kind of writing on stage with stage brain and improv, like, what are you telling these students as far as they have to kind of get where you're coming from? They actually, every joke has kind of a root and they have to understand the root. Like, it's
Well,
like
that's
speaking a different language. Like if they don't get it, it's like you're
yeah.
speaking a different language, right?
Well, so here's the thumbnail resume. And so I teach at Second City, and I've taught there for decades.
I've never
And
heard of that. What is that?
some people haven't. So, in case
Wow.
for anyone who hasn't, it's been around for over 60 years, and it was founded in improvisation. And it is the comedy mecca in Chicago.
Yes.
Most of the folks you see on SNL went through Second City training and their resident stages. And so I went through Second City in the early '90s. I saw my first sketch review in high school and just went nuts for it. And like, as soon as I got out of college, I did stand up for a while. Moved to Chicago, got involved in Second City, started a theater company, started teaching at Second City. I also teach at Columbia College Chicago, which has a comedy major.
Wow, really?
You can get a bachelor's degree in comedy writing and performance.
And how recent was that? And was that you're doing it, or is that the reason why they added you? Because they had to beef up the faculty on that discipline.
I think it's one of the. I already was teaching there. It's relatively new, but I'm horrible at chronology. But it might be going on 10 years now that we've had it.
Oh wow.
I got to double check the dates on that. But
After Aidan Quinn graduated, they're like, we need some people with a sense of humor.
we need to
drama.
take credit for Andy Richter. We need to take credit for these people. But it's a great program, and it's I really enjoy teaching. I think it's one of the reasons that it's not the reason they hired me; it's the reason they kept me.
Oh, good. Thank God. Yeah, you need as many jobs as you can if you're going to make a living teaching comedy, I would think.
No kidding. Yeah, and it's so I teach improv, I teach sketch comedy writing, I teach stand up, I also teach storytelling. Kind of wherever they throw me is what I'll be teaching.
And so, as far as teaching, kind of to make sure that the audience gets the kernel of your joke.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you teaching people in terms of kind of writing on
Yeah.
stage and writing for stage?
I have two answers for that. So at the very basic fundamental level, say like stand up, you want to make sure that your setup, well, actually this is true for sketch comedy writing too, and in improv. You want to make sure your setup or your beginning is super clear, that people understand who you are, where you are, and what you're doing.
Oh.
You know, so like in stand up parlance,
Jack
that's
Palance? Who?
that's the setup. You know,
Yeah.
you're setting up your joke, and then the punchline is the twist or the payoff. The same with sketch and improv is like at the beginning of your scene, you want to set up. Here's who we are. Here's where we are, and here's what we're doing, and then the problem comes in or the twist comes in,
And so
and then,
sometimes that's established through persona with stand up or
yep,
sitcoms are so successful because we kind of already know these characters and we're
you
so
know these
aware where
folks.
they're coming. So what's kind of an example of like, if I'm telling a first joke, people don't know my persona yet. So
Right.
and kind of is this kind of the problem with why certain comedies or big budget comedies, I suppose, are so kind of like heavy handed on the character portraits, like in Point Break, that's Bodhi. We call him the Bodhisattva. He's a real searcher. He's even crazier than you, Johnny. There's really heavy-handed character setups. Is it so that we can quickly establish who these people are and get to the punchlines?
Partially, I would
Okay.
think. I mean, my uh, the second answer to your question, I think the kernel of it, and this is like in the root of improvisation, is that you want to exhibit relatable human behavior. So that's where people connect to you. That's where they're like, I can identify with you. Like you present something that's like, oh gosh, that happened to me today, or oh, I haven't even thought about that, or oh, I've done that before, or if I were in that
Oh,
situation, I would do that. Um, so like in improv, especially, you're not trying to be funny. The humor comes from your character, your relationship, your emotional investment in an outcome of a situation, uh, and commitment. There's the golden formula right there. Write that down. Send me $100, everybody.
so I mean, like, is it more important then in your first couple of jokes on stage to just almost be vulnerable and human? Like if they don't know your persona yet, it's like, well, at the very least you're going to know that what I'm saying is you identify
Yeah.
with it. So for the first couple of jokes I'll be like you, but then when you hear the twist and you hear that I'm a complete piece of shit, then the next four jokes I can kind of play off that.
Yeah, but maybe not a piece of shit. Maybe just odd or a different way of looking at
Ah,
the world.
so is there a problem? Is there a problem with being a piece of shit? Because I mean, aren't there are there stand-ups out there who, have trafficked in being a piece of shit? Or are you saying it's more interesting? You have to be more interesting than that. You have to
Well,
still be human and so odd or having a weird take on things. Like you can be a piece of shit as long as it's a manifestation of your unique and humane character trait.
I think you have to find out what works best for you, and that's all trial and error, particularly in stand-up. But I think that's also true for improv. You develop your own persona as an improviser too, and as a writer. So here's an interesting thing. One thing I do once a month is I do a presentation on Zoom to a group of senior citizens in
Uh,
Evanston, Illinois.
I talked over that. What was it? Hamilton, Illinois?
Evanston.
Oh, Evanston. Sure. It's right by
Yeah,
Chicago up there in the purple
yeah,
line.
just
Sure.
north of Chicago. And I've been doing this for about 2 years now. And yesterday, it's once a month, focused on a great comedian. And yesterday we did Don Rickles, and Rickles, calls what he did attack humor.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting video online you can find on YouTube where it's in the 70s. He's sitting down and he's talking to like three professors. One a professor of psychology, one of sociology, and I think the other one's actually of medicine. And they're talking to him about his humor. And his bottom line is that he does it because it works for him. He discovered that doing regular stand up, that when he shut down a heckler, people roared. So the more he insulted people, the funnier he got.
Okay.
He also stress the point that he does not look at the audience as his enemy. He loves them. He does everything he can. When he does the insults, he does his best to project that he also loves these people.
How does he reconcile the two? I mean, how do you do that while you're attacking somebody to stay kind of loving?
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly what the key is to that because but I think it's more a way of being, and he was certainly successful at it. I know for myself, like I've been on stage before, and I have viewed the audience as enemies, and those sets didn't go so well. So
Yeah.
he tapped into his relationship with people, and was certainly successful at it. His career was 60 years long.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, how can is somebody like Anthony Jeselnik or whatever? Like, he seems to like his stuff is just so incredible. I mean, I'm sorry, man, incredible, like, unbelievable. Go from when like I don't recall, but back when I wrote shitty comedy like that, it was like, it's so incredulous. Like, from one moment you're having sex with a pregnant woman so you could feel the soft baby skull that she's about to have, and like the next minute you're doing this, and people are like, dude, I don't believe you. Like, in that one joke, you had a girlfriend that you're cheating on, and now you're gay. And so some of this stuff can be kind of incredible. And so how is there any love with the audience there? I mean, I guess the audience found him.
Well,
What's the
exactly.
unique humane thing that he's projecting that gets people to kind of be on his side?
Yeah, I think I don't know exactly what it is, but it's like if he doesn't have that rapport, then he's going to lose the audience. So I'm pretty sure that joke wasn't his opener.
Oh no, that was something I wrote. And back in the like,
Oh, okay.
it bombed because I was doing it in front of. I mean, it bombed horribly in part because everybody in the audience was also a comedian, and so they were like, "Yo, like, these are just fucking jokes that will not do well in front of a normal audience because they don't believe a word you're saying, and it's
Hmm.
internally inconsistent and things like that." But I'm not a huge fan of his. But I reached out to him way back in the day when I was doing this, and he goes, I was like, "Oh, can I help you write some jokes?" Because the jokes I was writing were like that. And he goes, "That's the fun part for me." And I was thinking, I can imagine that's the case because
Oh yeah.
before your audience finds you, if you're Anthony Jeselnik, like, the audiences must be like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Like, why do I want to hear this shit? I don't believe you." And so I'm just kind of wondering if there's any unique, humane thing or whatever. But yeah, maybe he's just a unique case or whatever. Like, what are you seeing in your students, with their unique, talent or whatever that, has you being able to predict if they'll do well? Is it just that they're hustling, they're coming, they're trying real hard? Like you say, they're doing a lot of practice and stuff like that and seeing what works and what doesn't. Is there anything that you can see in them right now while they're students at Columbia or Second City that kind of can be an accurate predictor of future success? Or have you whiffed on that? You're like, man, I thought that Chris Farley was a real piece of shit. Yeah.
It's pretty easy to whiff on it, that's for sure.
Okay.
I think a lot of it is showing up. I don't think people realize how much hard work it is, and
Yeah.
uh, and that is actually something we run into in the comedy program at Columbia College. You get these kids right out of high school with dreams on being on Saturday Night Live, and then they discover there's a lot of work. You have to, especially if you're going to be a comedian, that's not just being funny. It's being a writer. It's being a director. It's being an actor, and it's knowing your stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's certainly a drop off rate a little bit. It's not huge, but there's a drop off rate. People are just like, oh, I'm gonna go study communications. Um,
That's the backup. I love that.
but I think like there's people that you just kind of do get a sense of, and it's like they're the people that show up. I think that's most of it. They just show up. They're ready to work. They're hungry. They want to learn new things. Um, they some students show up and they just want to get praise for showing up, which I praise you for that. That's for
Yeah.
sure. But
That's
now
the
you got to give
least.
me a little bit more.
Yeah,
And
that's the least you have to do. And so, kind of, what are you seeing in terms of like being present? Like, if their head is off in la la land, being not sitting there wanting to learn, is that necessarily a bad thing? I mean, they could be crafting their persona as they speak. Like, do you not have to just show up, but do you also have to kind of be collaborative as well, because you know that
yeah,
in the future you're going to
yeah.
be collaborating with fellow actors and fellow writers?
Even if you're doing stand up, you gotta learn how to give and receive feedback
Yeah,
constructively,
yeah,
positively, and work well, play well with others. Nobody wants to support you or be with you if you don't play well with them. So we
yeah.
focus a lot on ensemble work in at Columbia, but also at Second City.
I mean, and I mean, like when I did stand up, like I did stand up in the Cubby Bear and I did really well. And then I went to one improv class and then I paid for the entire course, went to improv class, and I was like, I'm never going back again because it was the lack of control.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
fucking hate that. And so for highly sensitive people, like as I imagine, if you're a loner or stand-up comedian or whatever, like how can you get better at receiving positive feedback and how do you know when to take it with a grain of salt and stuff like that? Like, is there anything stand-ups can like learn from
Oh yeah.
improv? Is there
Uh,
anything they can learn from improv troops as far as I don't know, taking positive feedback?
well, it really kind of goes before the feedback. It's like embrace failure. You know, dare to suck.
Because then you'll learn something about kind of
Yeah,
I don't know, saving it. You have to be able to kind of rescue some shitty material, and so failing can be a part of getting those reps.
it's how you learn. It's how you embrace taking risks, or taking risks becomes more of a natural thing that you just do. If you're always doing your funny voice and that one thing that worked that one time,
Yeah.
you're just playing it safe and you're not going to grow. Growth comes from failing for sure.
So like yeah, so I mean, I guess probably growth in your career has kind of led you to where you were now. Because I mean, at the beginning, you don't think you have what it takes to be, you don't have the resume that it takes to be a teacher. And so like, but you've been in the thing for so long, probably doing so many things and meeting so many different people that ultimately teaching became what they kind of just gave you because you were great at it or whatever. But kind of what did you learn? Like, what were some certain growth, I don't know, learning opportunities that you took advantage of early on when you were like, oh shit, maybe I don't enjoy being a stand-up. I don't enjoy going to five open mics a night or something.
Well, when I did stand up, I was really kind of lucky. It was like in the mid 80s to early 90s, so that there's a big boom in comedy then. So it was pretty easy and almost too easy for people to become road comics.
Oh,
So yeah, and you'd find those people on the road. You'd have people who are doing original material and really trying stuff out and trying to better themselves, and then you'd have people who like, hey, my friends tell me I'm funny at parties, and they just get up and tell jokes.
yeah.
Uh, so you see both of those happening. Near the tail end of my stand-up career, I just started to get really. I just felt disillusioned. The thing I could see the wheels coming off the bus, and then
Why?
decided I wanted. If I'm gonna go up on stage and fail, I want friends with me.
Oh.
So that's when I got involved at Second City and started to lean into improv and theater. I also miss theater.
Okay. I mean, and so I guess my question is, because you also like improv is like it's got to be as long as it's got to be, but I also kind of do some sketch. I do the character sons videos, which is like a minute long. And some of these
That's
SNL
perfect.
sketches I'm seeing are just fucking. I mean, some of them are hilarious. Like Nice Jail. Have you seen Nice Jail with
No.
Willem Dafoe? Cut for Time. I mean, it's got millions of views on YouTube because it's just so bizarre. He created his own Nice Jail because he thought the people in jail were mean, and it's the funniest thing because he mixes it with all these jokes about him looking like Dracula or something because he used to be that vampire guy. But I mean, like some of these sketches, you're like, yo, this thing is 5 minutes too long. And so, kind of
Yeah.
when you're writing for sketch on stage, what's the sweet spot in terms of time? Because you are planning out a little bit about what points you want to hit during the sketch. Kind of what's too
Yeah.
long, and what did you learn as far as being too long and too short?
It's SNL has a different thing going on because they have commercial breaks.
Oh yeah,
So sometimes a sketch has to be 4 minutes long, and it stops being funny after 3 minutes. So
really?
yeah,
Can't
they
they
just
just like I don't know, just bring the commercial break sooner and then fit in another sketch at the end, or no?
I don't think they have that flexibility,
Oh,
just because of the rigidness of broadcast television, and
oh,
they're also dealing with full sets and props, and
yeah,
there's not like a Second City show where it's just six chairs and people are creating things with their hands out of air.
yeah.
So they got a lot of balls in the air. So that's one of the reasons some of their sketches go too long, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and so
Um,
kind of way, what's the sweet spot in terms of Second City or Columbia as far what is too long and too short for sketch?
well, again, it's like I don't think there is an accurate answer.
Okay,
It's like you said earlier, like with improv, like it's as long as however it needs to be.
yeah,
I've seen great sketch reviews where they're quick little blackouts, here and there that pepper it and get the pacing running. And then there'll be a scene where it's just two people and it slows down. It's a little bit more natural. Might even have a little poignant moment or two in it. And then I've seen stuff, particularly if it's a 2-act sketch review. In the second act, there's stuff in there that, well, my gosh, that could have been a 1-act play, like
Yeah.
a 10 to 15 minute, epic. And but it was fine. I think it's all devised work developed by improvisers, by an ensemble and a director. And when you were they test at Second City, they test stuff out from an audience every night.
Okay.
So if something's not working, they change it, they change it, they change it. It's still not working, it's gone. So
Oh,
they have that luxury to keep polishing what's happening. So
wow.
I think it's whatever it needs is however long it should be.
Okay. And so like to get all these lessons, like, we follow them everywhere. It's joejanes.net. It's Joe Janes 1065 at Instagram and Twitter. But if we want private lessons with the great Joe Janes, and we want money going to Joe and not necessarily Second City or Columbia, we're not getting our bachelors at Columbia in comedy. How can we get private lessons with you? Are occasionally you posting a link to, I'm doing a 5-class workshop on, writing for stand-up or something? Like, is that going to be posted on your socials?
Well, I haven't done that in a long time because I'm so busy at Second City and Columbia College. Your best way to reach me is the way you reached me, Brian. Go to joejanes.net and go to the contact form, and then shoot me an email, and we can chat.
He actually responds, and I'm so glad he did, because I learned so much, as I knew I would. Joe Janes, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate what you're doing here.